have a really, you're sitting there and you're trying to evolve an idea with one of these models, you're going to hit a context limit because it can't store everything for everybody forever. It has to compact or get rid of details that it doesn't think are necessary anymore. The problem with that is...
Welcome to Fire Talks by Tech Wing Bites. I'm Clint. I've built software, led teams, and now a founder, helping builders who are ready to make the leap, but can't quite see the path yet. Every episode is one conversation closer to clarity on ownership, execution, and momentum.
Welcome to my Fire Talks 3. This is the Fire Talks 3. There's no agenda. We're just really gonna talk about AI, what's going on in the world. But knowing me, I gotta prepare a little bit. So I have a list of platforms for us to just discuss. We see where it goes as conversation starter. If you have anything you want to talk about specifically, we can just dive in and knock it out that way. But I think it's also good to kind of give you an option to introduce yourself and what you want to shout out. So I met David at a CTO club here in Austin. So we hang out every once in a while, talk AI, talk about his fancy coding skills and leadership skills as well. And then I'm on with Hassan. He helps me with, this is my business partner, David, I told you about. He's headed to work right now and don't want us to see the side of his face. But Hassan, anything you want to add to that?
No, I'm just I actually was really curious and excited to kind of have these type of talks.
Mm-hmm.
I think I love organic conversations because I think that's where you get the best information and insight, for ourselves as those who are conducting it, but then also anyone who happens to listen to it. They get organic reactions and insight, and I think that's where the real learning comes from.
Absolutely. I'm logged in twice because I'm going to share my screen, which is why you see me there. David, you want to add anything?
No, I'm just excited to see where this goes.
All right, cool. So I'll tell you about. I'll kick it off by telling you about my my experience with Gemini Audio.
Oh.
I was talking to Gemini Audio. I was asking it something, and I think I might have said too many times because it started to respond to me in Japanese. So I said, "Why are you talking to me in Japanese?" And this is, "No, I didn't talk in Japanese. You're talking to me in Japanese." And we went back and forth for a while. I had to copy the screen and send it, and it still denied. Gemini denied the entire time that it didn't talk to me in Japanese. And the reason why I know it's is because I copied it and asked ChatGPT to translate it, and it was explained to me what was written in Japanese was means this in Japanese, blah blah blah. So I assumed that while I was talking, that's what happened. That's a weird quirk of the week for me with Gemini. Have you run into anything like that? And any weirdness with the chatbots?
So I will go and dabble with the other chatbots every once in a while, just to make sure that they're still not my preference, and then I go straight back to Claude. So
you're Claude 100.
More.
So are you Claude because you're a coder?
No, I just gives a better depth of answers, and when I can get it to fact check itself. So all of these models are well, they're inherently going to give you confirmation bias, and so you have to make them fact check. I don't care. I know enough to know that I don't know a lot of things, and where this is useful to me is showing me where I'm wrong, the facts that I know are not right, and B, the things that I'm just entirely missing. And the way these models are built, you have to prompt it to get it to give you the extra facts or to tell you why you're wrong. And getting ChatGPT or Grok or any of these others to do that is extremely difficult, whereas Claude will readily accept, this person doesn't just want confirmation bias, they want you to actually provide real insight. And so that's why keep going back to it. Just ease of use and getting additional information.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think for me, because I will say I'm a little biased towards ChatGPT. I'm not a huge fan of Gemini, and maybe I need to continue to use it more. But like ChatGPT, because I typically use it to help me to do things that I already know how to do. I find that it definitely does a good job. Like, of one, keeping me writer's block, right? And
Sure.
then also, I've learned. I guess I don't know if it's learned me or I learned it to be able to, kind of give me generate answers or generate responses that that align with what I already know to be true. And then of course when I need to ask for where its references, it does a good job of giving me the reference and I can go fact check it myself. But other than that, like I have never really used Claude. I know in my conversations with Clint, Claude is definitely one. If you're a coder, it works better for coders. So that's the reason why I asked that question.
Yeah, I don't
Go
use
ahead.
it necessarily just for writing software, though. I do a fair amount of other stuff. So I do outdoor influencer stuff as well, and so I use it for writing film script. Yeah,
Writing. I use it for writing. It's the best one that keeps because I'm like I go on a ChatGPT or even Gemini and say fix my grammar and punctuation, and I get a whole different paragraph, right? But Claude, it keeps it as close to what I'm trying to say and everything, and it does exactly. I'm like, okay. I even ask it at the end when I'm doing it for writing, show me everything you change and why.
so Clint, you don't write with 50 em dashes per paragraph?
I do actually. I
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
love
never mind.
M dashes, and that's the conflict, right? I just give up. I'm like, I'm using it. I don't care. That's how I write. I love my M dashes, and to see that that's I don't know, a clue if you're using AI is weird to me because that's what people uses now. But even I've seen at least 2 or 3 articles now. Chat GPT just released 5.2 and they claim it's good. It's Gemini VO3 competitor as far as images is concerned, and supposedly better than the it's not this, it's this, type of thing. But I use my M dashes. Even when I'm talking, right? Like I'm gonna say something, then I want to explain it. So that's what I use my M dashes for. So that's like that's my voice. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, see,
And
and me,
emojis too.
oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, no, for me, because I like the emojis, but like the M dashes, I'm not a fan of the M dashes. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm old school. I'm gonna use a semicolon or a comma, right? And for me, it works that way. And sometimes it'll use an M dash where I don't want to break up the thought. I need it to flow straight through. And so
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I'll just take the M dash out and it reads the way that I want to. But I'm not a huge fan of the M
yeah.
dashes.
Yeah, I used to use the 3 dots a lot to do the same thing the M dash does, the ellipses. So now it's like M dash is all the way until people's like, well, this is the way you use. This is how you know people is using AI.
Yeah.
Now it's another thing. They said if people is just copying and pasting without editing their work, you'll also see a space in front of the first paragraph as another indicator. There's many different indicators. I think for as much as you collaborate back and forth, and tell me, David, if this is true for Claude. I know it's true for Gemini and Chat GPT, but I mostly just use Claude for the vibe coding and the writing stuff, not the conversations and deep thinking. And when I'm going back and forth with Chat GPT and Gemini, I can I kind of like, I don't know, build a little intuitive relationship with it. So then when I'm reading somebody else's article, I'm like, yeah, they used ChatGPT for that. I could tell like the type of words, like in that context, ChatGPT or Gemini will use these words, deep dive or deep delves, or shifts. It's always using these same kind of context, no matter what personality you put it on, because the personality just kind of comes in initially, and then when you start to get deep into it, it falls back into its original way of things.
Yeah. We're start on that.
Mhm.
With I know exactly what you're talking about with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
That's actually one of my issues with it. Claude is interesting though. It's gotten a little bit better with this, but previously, I don't know their backend architecture, but it was very, very distinct between sessions. When I would get
Mhm.
on one server cluster versus another, I would get very different personalities in my responses, and it wasn't necessarily due to the change, a new model coming out or anything like that.
Mhm.
But ever since I started using projects, well, since they launched projects instead of Claude, I've stopped seeing that as much. Uh,
Mm.
but yeah, it's not consistent. It's not. I wouldn't say there's as much personality to it as there is. I see a lot in the context space coming through. You know, we've discussed that ad nauseum
Yeah.
before, but you know, wherever it landed in that vector map or vector field, you're
Mhm.
going to get a lot of personality from the information that's consumed there,
Right.
instead of just its general personality that it has. I guess is the best way, or the way the style
General.
is responding. Rather, is probably a better way of saying it. Assigning
Yeah.
humanistic characteristics to this is probably not. But
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Interesting. That so when you use Claude, you don't get any quirkiness? Do you feel like it's always smooth? Because that's why I feel like I'm getting. I get quirkiness with all the others for me.
no,
Right?
absolutely not. It's definitely not always smooth. And there's so the general Claude interface has gotten a lot smoother and it's a lot more consistent
Mm-hmm.
now. I found I still run into those same issues on Claude Code, where
Mm-hmm.
I'll start a session and I'll end up on some cluster that's just not up to my standard, and it starts
Mm-hmm.
spitting out all sorts of garbage or not respecting my context that I've previously established inside of my code base, etc. And I have to, kill it and roll back changes and start over. But
Right. That makes me question this because I feel like this is still a thing. Like the whole concept behind hallucination, right? Like the context is supposed to help with that, right? And throwing more infrastructure and more memory behind it seemed to help, the whole hallucination thing, right? But I feel like based on the platform, after a certain times, depending on how long the conversation goes, it could run out of context.
oh yeah, absolutely. No,
Right?
I I constantly run Claude out of context.
Yeah.
Um, but if you're using projects, you can go and say,
Yeah.
hey, look, go
Oh, sorry.
go look at these number of chat sessions we just had.
Mhm.
Go do a deep dive on them, get yourself super familiar with it, and then we'll start with our new context space after you've basically rebuilt half of it.
Skills.
Would you say Egan? Well, welcome, Egan. First off.
Claude skills. Have you looked at Claude skills?
Claude skills, maybe.
It's a new thing. Maybe it came out about maybe in October, and oh, dude, it's dope. It
Well,
it has like a little bit of front matter, then
yes.
that doesn't take up a whole lot of context in your window, and then once you trigger it, it loads like I don't know 5,000 tokens of progressive loading into your conversational memory. So
Right.
and so yeah, it's I used it. Who is it? My first dip into it was Hugging Face has a set of
Mm,
skills, and I used it to train my first model, fine tune my first model, and it was so easy, and it cost me like $1.24 or something, and it was fantastic.
So
Yeah.
Egan, I wanna ask you a question. So the last time, in the last one, I was talking to this guy Tony, and he was telling me that he goes to some GitHub projects and
Yes.
loads a bunch of MD files. So if it's about project management, he loads them up and says, okay, this is who I want you to be, and kind of starts the conversation. And I would assume if it runs out of context, he just reloads those files. Is that Claude skills? Is that the similar pattern?
There's a whole bunch of things that go into managing your context window and trying to keep it open for conversation so you're not always compacting. I've got a half-written LinkedIn post about this, and my capture picture is Luke and Leia and Han Solo in the trash compactor, like life in Claude Code be like, living in a trash compactor. But yeah, I have what is it? There are a couple systems out there. One is based on TDD and one is on DDD, which is like retcon writing the documentation first, and then building the app from the documentation. That
Right.
is a Microsoft amplifier that sits on top of Claude Code. And then I know there's another one out there that one is DDD based, and there's another one that's TDD. I don't know what TDD is.
Wait. So test-driven design, right?
Yes. Thank you.
What's DDD?
Documentation driven design.
With documentation or domain?
I think it's
Domain.
documentation because it does everything kind of retcon style.
Okay.
And so I have built up based on amplifier. I have taken that and I have layered the bejesus out of it. And now just the other day, I took my fork and renamed it Spinal Tap. Went from amplifier to Spinal Tap. This thing goes way beyond 11. And so RIP Rob Reiner. And because of this context and because of always hitting limits, everybody's always hitting limits no matter what IDE they're using. And so I have set up, I've got 64 gig of RAM on my laptop and on my Mac Mini. And so I use local models to offload tasks and a set of Crew AI agents linked in to Claude Code to offload all these tasks on my local cluster, if you will.
So question.
And so that reduces my usage. It
A question for you.
yeah.
So is it, when you say limits, are we talking about context memory limits, or are we talking about tokens?
And yeah, your 5-hour window, running out of tokens. Yeah.
Okay.
Both of those, juggling both of those at the same time.
Interesting.
So the Claude skills stuff looks like basically what you're doing is they've opened it up to where you can kind of create your own MCP server.
They have a side by side, like when you want to use MCP and when you want to use skills. Skills it's more lightweight. It's not as much overhead, but it's for repeatable tasks. Where I think MCP is maybe another level step up, API kind of level.
Well,
but they have in their articles, they have kind of a when to use which. And I'm still wrapping my head around that.
Yeah.
So for the lay people in the back, can you guys kind of water down a little bit about because you guys just really went Chinese on me, and yeah, I'm sitting here trying to catch, and I can catch it here and there, but David, the question you asked just went so far over my head that I didn't even see it.
Let's back up.
Yeah.
Gurgle.
Yeah. So let me see if I can summarize this for you. So basically, what Egan was just going over there is maybe you're familiar with you're a ChatGPT user, so you can create GPTs in ChatGPT to be able to do some common thing or have some certain voice when you're asking it to do a task, right? So like you go and use that GPT to generate your response. So effectively skills, Claude skills is kind of a similar thing, it looks like. And then from there, that evolved into talking about context windows. So anytime you have you're sitting there and you're trying to evolve an idea with one of these models, you're going to hit a context limit because it can't store everything for everybody forever. It has to compact or get rid of details that it doesn't think are necessary anymore. The problem with that is, from a software developer standpoint, or when you're building really, really large, complex ideas, that a lot of those details maybe don't matter right now with what's being worked on, but it matters in the overall picture, right? So if I'm writing some large library inside of my software using a large language model, and it compacts out some of the details of how the authentication system works while it's working on something else, and then it goes back and tries to tie stuff in the authentication model, it doesn't know what to do, and it may or may not do it correctly.
Dementia or Alzheimer's, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the hallucination thing. Mhm.
Right. Oh, yeah. Sort of.
Okay.
Sort of. But
See, he's really technical. He can break it down now. There you go.
yeah. And so my question to Egan when I asked him, it's like, okay, so skills looks like maybe it's basically Claude offering a point and click MCP server to people. So MCP servers are, if you have an application or website or something like that you want to tie into your favorite large language model, you can put something together called an MCP server. You can give it some general context of what it's allowed to use, what
Tools.
what services it has to be able to use to answer those questions, etc. How long to make the responses, those types of things. And then you basically send the responses to your MCP server. The MCP uses that pre-built context to go and query against the large language model, and then it returns back into the application. That's kind of a simplified view of it. And so that's why I was asking if skills was basically they were just building a point and click MCP for people to use to do those general things.
It's instead of MCP is more tools, and I think skills is more context and knowledge. Loading the process in, as opposed to loading a set of tools to accomplish the process. One thing to say about MCP is it's the USB plug for all the AI systems. Just to give you a little more context to something.
But
so when I'm
Egan,
hearing, sorry.
1 second, Hassan. Egan, just for clarity from what David was saying, is it so the MPC creates the ecosystem so that you can plug and play different things, right? We get that. But in the concept of skills, if it's loading context, is it loading it in such a MCP pattern way where it's like, hey, this is the ecosystem, so it's not loading it into memory for like one chat or one path. It's like the whole thing.
I think it loads it into the conversational history, into the context window. And I don't know how long it persists, but it always knows that it can re-trigger it. You can trigger it with just by saying certain keywords. You don't have to necessarily make it a slash command.
Oh, okay.
So I can say,
so with skills,
make me a model using Llama 318B and use this data set that's up on it will load how to fine tune a model, how to deal with how to connect. I don't know. I imagine it says, hey, and there's MCP tools in order to do all this stuff. But I don't know that just yet.
I would imagine
it's so cool.
The back end it is MCP. Anthropic is they created MCP. I mean, it's an open standard. But, I mean, it's theirs. So
yeah. And Hassan, what's your question?
So with the skills, because what it sounds like to me is that the skills on Claude, that's more for your technically savvy user as opposed to someone who's non technical. Because I mean, a lot of the conversation that you guys are having around it, you know, it you know when you're talking about tools versus content, it sounds like it's more technical than than a non-technical person would know how to utilize.
I think of it as in the Matrix when Neo says, "I know kung fu." You know, it's like loading kung fu in your brain.
Yeah, Hassan, think of it as like a big room with a lot of doors and windows. That's your MPC server. So the doors and windows is how you can plug different uh, uh, access to that room. And when you look at Claude skills, is like, hey, this is what David was getting at. If it is a big room, does that doors and windows only load knowledge, right? So operations manager, product manager, and things like that, knowledge, right? Versus if it's just code. For an MPC server, the big room is going to load other uh, in context layman's terms, other chatbots, right? So my MPC server can load Perplexity, Claude, Gemini, or whatever, and then all that can live in one big ecosystem as I code my one app. If I understood that correctly.
Sort of. I mean, you could have multiple LLMs, but I mean, more typically you'll give it like access to Jira and GitHub and other
via APIs, I presume.
Yeah, the MCP kind of makes the translation to the API, describes the APIs in a way.
Yeah.
So skills basically is a place that houses, or like basically, it's like it almost houses a place for everything else to collaborate on what you're currently working on.
Sort of. So
knowledge
is a lightweight way to say, here are all the skills I have.
Right.
And you can ask me more about those skills when you need them.
Need it.
Whereas with MCP, you are like, here are all the tools, and here's all the things that you can do with all the tools, and here's all the details with the tools, and all that information clogs up your window. All the tools that you have to only load a few tools at a time. If you load up all the tools that you have, it clogs up your whole, ability with your whole window, and so yeah.
No, that makes sense now. So yeah, because I run into that with ChatGPT, where it told me that basically this chat is full. Right?
Yes, that's your context window. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to avoid, is that running into that. And there's ways around it that Claude Code
and skills provides that way around it, basically.
And projects and a bunch of things. Yeah, there's a bunch of tools to try to get around this limitation. And Gemini has a really big one, a 2 million token. That if you need something where you need if you need a whole encyclopedia in your brain all at once, you go to that guy. All the others have like a 128, 200. Yeah,
that makes sense. That's why it's not forcing the context when I'm going back and forth. David, you're gonna say something.
So yeah, I'm reading through this. I dug into the skill stuff until we had this conversation, but I'm pouring through the documentation as we're talking about it, and it's interesting. I've noticed as I'm using the online Claude stuff for just either writing scopes or for writing film plans, when it comes time to actually start generating the document, it started saying that reviewing the document skills or document generation skills or this, that, and the other skill. It's creating its own skills in the background based off of your prior.
Oh.
Hey, what's up? I'm Clint. Thank you for hanging out with me on this one. If you're listening or watching this cut, the full episode is on techwingman.substack.com. Go subscribe. It's worth it. And if you're already a paid member, you're good. Keep watching. Either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I actually read that stuff. All right, back to the episode. Hey, one more thing.
I know I don't always talk directly to who's watching and listening. I'm still figuring out this podcast thing. Bear with me as I build. I appreciate you being here, though, and staying with me this far. Thanks again. Now back to the episode.